What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sitdown. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure you hit the like button and let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also, if you're new around here, you just haven't done it yet, or you're living under a rock, I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit that subscribe button below now so you never miss another Sitdown video. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into another Mafia topic. And a couple of months ago, I did part one of this video. I took a look over the years at certain men, women, and children that died at the hands of the Mafia. Innocent civilians who got caught up in revolts, power struggles, or just downright greed. It was well received, and I think it's important to honor more people killed by organized crime today. In part two, we get into 4 sad and horrifying stories where just regular people were killed by people whose only goal is to terrorize communities, make money, and lead without reprisal. The story of innocent people killed by organized crime next on Sitdown Shorts. 3-year-old Coco Campolongo. In 2014, he was just a little toddler who enjoyed to laugh and was embarking on a hopeful long life. Sadly, though, his mother went to prison. She would go to jail on drug dealing charges, and he'd be put in the hands of his grandfather, Giuseppe Agnicelli. Sadly, though, in 2014, Italian authorities in the area of Cosenza in Calabria in southern Italy made a grisly discovery. One morning, they found a burned-out Fiat Punto with 3 people inside. In the back seat, in a car seat, 3-year-old Coco Campolongo's body was found badly burned and had multiple bullet holes. In the front seats were Giuseppe Agnicelli and his partner, Betty Toussaint, a Moroccan immigrant who was partners with Giuseppe. Through investigations, the authorities would find out that Giuseppe Agnicelli was a drug trafficker, and he had become involved in a dispute with a local criminal group and a transnational organization called the 'Ndrangheta. In the area of Cosenza, Giuseppe Agnicelli sold drugs without kicking up. And in the mob's eyes, if you don't get down, they're going to lay you down. Now, Agnicelli had thought in previous drug deals that if he took his 3-year-old grandson on with him, no one would hit him. He got that wrong. In early 2014, the 3 bodies would be discovered. It would be a huge story in Italy. Who would kill such a little child? Subsequently, 2 individuals would be arrested. On the left, an individual called Faustino Campolongo. In Italian, they called him the pig. On the right was Cosimo Donato. He was called Il Topo, a.k.a. the mouse. These 2 individuals are grisly killers who will spend the rest of their lives in prison. Outside of naming who they are, I will not shed another moment in talking about them. It's important, though, that we think of the one victim in this case. Sadly, Giuseppe Agnicelli is no different than the 2 individuals that committed this heinous crime. He was a drug dealer who used his own grandson as a human shield. The real victim in this case is little Coco Campolongo, a little toddler who just probably liked to play with toys and have a good time. May he rest in peace, and may his memory be a blessing. On August 10th, 1989, 2 individuals who ran a private trash hauling company on Long Island were found shot to death in their business. They were named Robert Kubecka and Donald Barstow. Robert Kubecka was an environmentalist, and he decided in his 30s to take over his father Jerry's small private sanitation company. Both Quebeca and Barstow were friends. They were married. And they engaged in trips and all sorts of things together with their wives. They were regular people, regular New Yorkers who had jobs in garbage hauling. It was a nice life. Eventually, though, as we know, the vultures in the Mafia came calling. As we know, the Gambino crime family, the Lucchese crime family, and other Mafia groups are very involved in the trash hauling business. And eventually, Quebeca's company became a zero-in point on the Mafia. Members of the Lucchese crime family began to attempt to shake down Robert Quebeca. One of the individuals that would orchestrate these shakedowns was lunatic Anthony Casso. Casso would pester Quebeca to start kicking up. And as we know in the Mafia, if you don't get down, they're going to lay you down. That wouldn't come right away. Casso would instruct members of the family to light trucks on fire, throw fire bombs into the business, and really pester Quebeca. But he wouldn't pay. You're not going to come into my business, said Quebeca, and take what you want. Eventually, Quebeca got sick of it and ran to the FBI and began cooperating. You can't blame him, can you? These individuals would not leave him alone. He was a regular civilian, and he deserved to run his business just like anyone else. Eventually, Anthony Casso would find out that Quebeca was an informant for the FBI. On August 10th, 1989, Anthony Bowat Barada, Carmine Avellino, Rocco Vitulli, and Frank Federico allegedly walked into the business in Northport, Long Island, and killed both Quebeca and Barstow. Barstow died at the scene. Quebeca would die on the way to the hospital. To this day, no one has ever been sentenced for this crime. Now, members of this group, including Avellino, would go to prison on some sort of connection to this crime, but no one was found guilty of first-degree murder, and no one actually paid for this crime. Now, the families of Robert Quebeca and Donald Barstow would be awarded about $11 million from the federal government in this case. In fact, the New York State attorney would pay that money to the families. But it would take 9 years. Ultimately, the only person to go to prison for life was Anthony Casso. As we know, he would then cooperate and go against the family. We could talk about him on another video. This is about the innocent people, not psychopath murderers like Anthony Casso. May Robert Quebeca and Donald Barstow rest in peace. May their memory be a blessing. On October 9th, 2004, a home on the 3200 block of North 6th Street in North Philadelphia was on fire. Inside, 6 people burned to death after the house was lit on fire. The victims in the crime included a woman at the top left named Marcella Coleman. She was a prison guard who had multiple children. Also killed in the fire was a 10-month-old baby in the middle named Damir Jenkins. Also killed were other toddlers, as well as a teenager and another grown woman. Philadelphia wondered who would do such an unspeakable crime. Eventually, an individual named Kabani Savage would be indicted by the federal government. He would be involved in a wide-ranging indictment that said he was the head of a drug organization in Philadelphia called the Kabani Savage Organization. On October 8th of 2004, his sister, Kadada Savage, would instruct an individual named Lamont Lewis to firebomb the home in the area of North 6th Street. They're probably asking, why would they order to do that? Well, The woman in the photo, Marcella Coleman's son, an individual named Eugene Coleman, was a former member of the Kobani Savage organization. And Eugene Coleman had decided to cooperate against Kobani Savage. Now, Savage, if you know anything about him, has had a long-standing history of attempting to kill witnesses. He felt like no witness, no crime. In October of 2004, he would call home to his sister Kadada and order her to tell Lamont Lewis to, in the morning of October 9th, alongside another individual, Robert Merritt, to go firebomb the home. After the ordeal, Lamont Lewis would find out that there were children inside. He would phone home to Kadada Savage, who had still yet to pay him the $5,000 she had told him she'd pay him for taking care of this crime. But Kadada Savage was yelled at by Lewis, claiming, "You didn't tell me there were kids inside." Kadada Savage would, quote, respond, "Fuck them." In the late hours of October 10th, 2004, the federal government, as Kobani Savage was inside his jail cell at the FDC on Arch Street in Philadelphia, Kobani Savage would be heard on prison wiretaps discussing that at the funeral, they should take plenty of barbecue sauce to burn them burnt bitches. This is the kind of individual Kobani Savage was. He was a heinous, psychopathic murderer who belongs in prison for the rest of his life. In June of 2013, after being subsequently convicted of drug dealing, 12 counts of murder, and other crimes, Kobani Savage would be handed 13 federal death sentences. To this day, he sits at ADX Florence, awaiting his death day. May the 6 victims in Philadelphia that died on October 9th, 2004, may they rest in peace and their memory be a blessing. In 1973, Hamas Abdul Khalis was the leader of a Muslim sect called the Hanafis. He would buy a home in this area of Washington, D.C., and run his organization from it. Around that year, he sent a letter to 50 different Nation of Islam temples exclaiming that their leader, Elijah Muhammad, was not fit for command. He would send the letter berating the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Certain people were not happy about this letter. In fact, many people weren't happy. Now, Hamas Abdul Khalis was a revolutionary. He at one point was a Catholic who would convert to Islam. He would ultimately create the sect of Muslim faith and attract people like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He had put many people to work and raised his family inside the home in North Washington. Several days after the letter was received, 7 individuals from Philadelphia, including an individual named Ron Harvey, would lead a hit squad to Washington, D.C. The hopes that day were to kill Hamas Abdul Khalis. In the eyes of the Black Mafia, which they were later known as, you were not going to disrespect Elijah Muhammad and get away with it. Ron Harvey would lead the crew into D.C. And on that day, in January of 1973, they would storm the residence in North Washington. According to an individual that would pick up the phone that morning, 2 men decided that they wanted to buy literature and they set up a meeting. They were instructed to come to the home. Those 2 men were part of the hit squad. They barged in the home and exclaimed, "This is a stick-up." The first victim was the son of Hamas Abdul Khalis, Dawood, who was taken to a 3rd-floor bedroom and shot in the head. The next victim was the wife of Hamas Abdul Khalis, Bibi Khalis. But before she was killed, she was tied up and made to watch as Ron Harvey drowned 4 of their children, including a 9-month-old baby who he drowned in a bathroom sink. Eventually, when the cops arrived, they assumed in the sink it was a doll. The grisly discovery would actually be that it was an infant baby. According to a witness that was at the scene of the crime, one of the hitters, he would describe that at one point Ron Harvey said during the killings, quote, "The baby had to die because he bore the seed of the hypocrite." That day in Washington, 7 people in all would die, including 4 children, ranging in age from 9 months to 10 years old. Ron Harvey would ultimately be sentenced to life in prison, and he would die several years later. In all, 6 of the 7 members of the hit squad went to prison. The only one to not go to prison was an individual named John Price. Price decided to cooperate against the suspects. According to him, though, he decided to leave the witness protection program and go to prison. Several years later, he would be killed in a Pennsylvania prison. May the people that died in 1979 at the Hanafi House in North Washington rest in peace, and may their memories be a blessing. All of the individuals today are innocent. They are all beautiful individuals who had their whole lives in front of them. These are 2 videos that we can't take for granted. Occasionally on this show, we look at criminals in a burgeoning light. Some of these people are just racketeers or maybe bookies or something along those lines. But the truth of the matter is most of the people involved in organized crime are disgusting individuals who prey on innocent people and take from those who work hard. As I said again, in both videos, may every person that died, women, men, and children, may all their memories be a blessing, and may they rest in peace. As always, if you enjoy this video, please sure you hit the like button and subscribe if you're new around here so you never miss another sit-down video. We'll see you next time here on the show.